The following is a special presentation of our Nation Sports Show. Normally, we analyze the world of sports every single week, but tonight, and for one night only, that changes. Tonight's episode will be about all things music in the world of hard rock and heavy metal. One of the most historic concert events took place this past Saturday in Birmingham, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, titled Back to the Beginning, featuring the final performances of the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, and the founding fathers of heavy metal, the original lineup of the mighty Black Sabbath. Also, Back to the Beginning featured performances by Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Slayer, Tool, Pantera, Alice in Chains, and so many other artists and bands all day long pay tribute to Ozzy and to Sabbath. Tonight, I do the same. I bring to you my complete recap of Creed's opening night on their 2025 Summer of '99 tour in Lexington, Kentucky from this past Wednesday, and I break down Back to the Beginning. Let's rock and roll all night long. It's showtime. Not about the world of sports. It is all about the world of rock and roll. So let's get it up and go balls to the wall on this special all music edition of our Nation Sports Show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that right from yours truly. Tonight's special edition of our Nation Sports Show is not about the world of sports. It is about all things music. Thank you for joining me on this special broadcast of our Nation Sports Show, covering all things music in the world of hard rock and heavy metal. I am your host for this special broadcast. My name is Stephen Wyand. And every single week, I look forward to being on with my fellow brothers on this show, talking about the world of sports. But, ladies and gentlemen, I could not think of a better time to do an all special edition on this channel, our Nation Sports Show, by switching gears and talking all things music, which is my biggest passion in life. Music has saved my life in so many ways. I love it. I eat, sleep, and breathe music every single day. And what better time than now to sit on this show and broadcast this for all of you guys, talking about a lot when it comes to music in the last week or so for me, because I went to Creed's opening night of their 2025 Summer of '99 tour in Lexington, Kentucky on Wednesday night with opening acts Mammoth and Daltrey. And also, I will recap last Saturday's Back to the Beginning concert in Birmingham, England, featuring an all-star lineup of rock star royalty with the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne, and Black Sabbath's final performances. Also taking the stage was Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Slayer, Tool, Pantera, Alice in Chains, and so many other artists and bands took that stage for not only a great cause, but to pay tribute to Ozzy and to Sabbath all day and all night long. And tonight, Ladies and gentlemen, I am bringing you a special broadcast of talking about music. And before I get things started, we have to plug the social media platforms up first on Twitter or X. It is at ON_sports show. You can also follow us on Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show. And we also do our normal sports shows on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific at youtube.com/Nation Sports Show. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to your family and your friends who love the world of sports. But if you have friends who love music just as much as I do, and just as much as my brother Ezra and our other brother Randy, we eat, sleep, and breathe some hard rock and roll and some heavy friggin' metal, baby. And before I get to the Back to the Beginning concert from last Saturday, I do want to recap my latest concert in Kentucky. My father and I went down to Kentucky for a couple of days in Lexington, and we decided to go to the Creed show, kicking off the tour. And the one thing that I love about going to first shows on a tour is you don't know the set list. You don't know what songs are going to be played during that evening's set. Anything can be played. And just the element of surprise. I love that. I love the element of surprise because you can't predict what is about to be played in front of your very eyes and or ears. And this was, I couldn't think of another, great band besides Alter Bridge. And kind of funny how Alter Bridge was the very first show that I ever went to where I did not know what was going to be on the set list, because I went to the Greensboro show of the kickoff with Alter Bridge's Ponds and Kings tour with Seven Dust opening up at the Piedmont Concert Hall with my good buddy Bo Morris and my other good buddy Matt Blue. Shout out to you guys that went to that show with me. And also those two fellow brothers of mine. We went to the Metallica show at the Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte at the end of May. That was a badass show. And that Alter Bridge and Seven Dust show was so damn good because we could not predict what was going to be played on the set list between Seven Dust and Alter Bridge. And just to kind of set the mood, for this Creed review, is when Seven Dust played as the opening act, we didn't know what were they going to start with, like I just mentioned. And when they opened up with Face to Face, me and Bo looked at each other. We were going, holy shit, like, this is how we're starting it? Like, all right, let's do this. And it was just great. It was great energy, just 10 songs, 50 plus minutes of just in your face rock and roll. Then Alter Bridge came out, did their thing. Great musicians with Mark Tremonti and Brian Marshall, and of course Scott Phillips on drums, and the great Miles Kennedy on lead vocals and rhythm and occasional lead guitar. And it's very funny how that was the first show that I ever went to of the opening tour of any artist and or band. And then this past Wednesday, I did the same thing with 3/4 of Alter Bridge, but obviously their more famous band, Creed, with Scott Stapp, obviously the lead singer. And it was just so fitting and so, coincidence that happened. And overall, it was a really good show. And shout outs to the gentlemen that were about 7 minutes from the arena that were working with these bands, selling official merchandise, $20 on the shirts, instead of going into the arena and paying an upcharge to get the same damn shirts. And just really nice gentlemen, really cool dudes from New York. And if you find these guys at any of these shows that Creed and the rest of the bands are going to be at, if you hear them talking, hey, this is official merch, you $20 on shirts, take the opportunity, because it is official merch. And I got myself a shirt along with my mother a shirt because she is a massive Creed fan herself. And my father and I, we had a great time. We had great seats. We were in section 21, row L, the first two seats. Killer sound. And normally when you go to these venues, especially these indoor venues, not every artist on the lineup is going to get the same sound treatment as far as a sound check and just really good sound. But Wolfgang and his band Mammoth, and Chris Daughtry and his band, by the name of Daughtry, obviously,
Chris and Wolfgang's bands both got a fair sound check on, proper sound check and making sure that everything was dialed in. And Wolfgang's band Mammoth, set the tempo off, and they kicked things off with another celebration at the end of the world. And just what a great tune to kick off this show and to kick off the evening. And Wolfgang and his band was firing on all cylinders. And of course, that guitar solo by Wolf got the crowd, including myself and everybody else in the building that was already there, whipped up into a frenzy. And especially when I get to the back to the beginning concert, there's going to be a lot of mentions of whipping the fans into a frenzy. And yeah, that solo by Wolf was just unbelievable. And after that song, they went right into, and this was to my surprise. And again, the element of surprise. You don't know what is going to be coming when these opening shows happen on these tours. And it was so cool because during early part of the day, I was reading on the rock and metal sites, and I was reading that Wolfgang Van Halen announced the release for the upcoming third Mammoth album titled The End. And speaking of The End is an incredible track. That was the first single of this soon to be released album. And that tapping technique that his father, the late great Eddie Van Halen, made popular. Obviously, he didn't start it, but he made it popular. And Wolf just channeling his inner Eddie Van Halen techniques with that tapping technique, following by a crushing riff. But obviously, that came out a couple of months ago, and that was, setting the tempo for this, new album. So I was wondering, what was going to happen because at this show with Wolfgang's band, because early on in the day, Wolf announced that the third Mammoth album, The End, was coming out on October 24th, and a second single called The Spell. Really cool track. I checked it out, and I was floored. I was like, man, these guitars, the tone of these guitars is just killer, and the bass and the drums and them vocals, man. Wolf continues to get better and better and better with his songwriting skills. And just from the first record, now about to be his third record, you can hear the maturity in Wolf's songwriting from, album number one to now album number three. And Wolf has an incredible backing band backing him. And these guys are incredible musicians, just like Wolf is. And obviously, Wolfgang is a multi instrumentalist. And they played, to my surprise, the second song of the night was the live debut of The Spell. And this came off great in front of a live audience. And I said to myself, listening to this song for the first time in real time, I said, man, that middle section with that headbanging riff and the breakdown and that call and response on, hey, hey, that is going to be a great call and response with the crowd at concerts. And when that song catches on and people get used to hearing it, they're going to really gravitate to that song. And after The Spell, they went into the track Distance from Wolf's first album, Mammoth. And this was a fitting tribute to Eddie. And hearing this live, it never gets old. It's such a beautiful song. And obviously, just the lyrics are heavy and raw emotion, and just really cool that Wolf plays this pretty much on a nightly basis during his headlining tour stops on his tours. And after that, they went right into Take a Bow from Mammoth 2, Mammoth's second album. And this, for me, was the highlight of their set because the beautiful melodic verses into that powerful chorus. And then after it goes to a second verse and a second chorus, then it goes into this bridge. And that bridge takes this song to another level. And after that bridge, the guitar solo. Man, oh man. Put on a set of headphones and hearing that beautiful, powerful solo will transform you into another dimension. And it did to me sitting there in that arena in Lexington. And it was just so moving, and it just sent chills down my entire body. I'm going, my God, if you are not feeling this, then you ain't human. And after a very powerful performance of Take a Bow that went into Wolf's biggest hit so far of his career, probably, Don't Back Down. Of course, that was great. I've heard that live plenty of times. And then to cap off the set, fittingly, the end was the song that ended the set for Wolfgang and his band. And hearing the studio version is one thing, but experiencing this song in a live setting, my God, is it heavy? It's so groovy. The riff is just so bouncy, and that bass lick that is played before the chorus, it is just fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, the drum fills in the middle of this track on the chorus is phenomenal. And of course, that guitar solo is great too. Great set by Wolfgang and his band, setting off the night right. And to follow after Wolfgang and his band, as I said, was Chris Daughtry and his band Daughtry. And this for me was a first time experiencing Chris live in real time. Of course, I've experienced Chris Daughtry sing live on television when he was on American Idol, nearly 20 years ago. And that's hard to believe that we're coming up on 20 years ago when Chris Daughtry first graced our television screens when he was on American Idol. And overall, good set by Chris and his band. I really loved the opening song of this set, and one of my favorite songs that Chris most recently came out with called The Reckoning. Just this song kicks you in the ass, just balls to the wall, heavy from the opening riff. And Chris, man, when he wants to scream, man, can he still hit some intense screams. And Daughtry's set was a pretty good mix of hits and more newer material. One of the more interesting spots of Chris's set that caught my ears was his band did a rendition of Journey's hit Separate Ways. And it kind of caught me off guard because I was not expecting that, but to my surprise, I thought it was really good. Chris, obviously, he's not Steve Perry, but he doesn't need to be Steve Perry because nobody can replace Steve Perry as far as singing that song. You could have anybody out there that can come close to hitting those notes that Perry did back in the day, but Chris did it his own way, and I thought the band overall, sounded good with this. And then Daughtry played some more recent stuff that he came out with in the last couple of years, and especially this year, such as songs like a song that came out back in April of this year called "The Day I Die," and that'll be on his second EP, probably, I would assume. And I mean, I don't like to assume things, y'all, because I'll make an ass out of you and me if it's wrong. But I would assume that "The Day I Die" is going to be on the second part of Shock the System, because Shock the System Part 1 came out last year. And another thing that was very nice to me in Chris's set was a very cool and beautiful acoustic version of Away from the Sun, because Brad Arnold and Three Doors Down was supposed to be the band in the middle of Creed on these tour dates. But unfortunately, Brad Arnold is battling cancer, and all of us here on A Nation Sports Show and everybody out there sends our thoughts, our prayers, and our condolences to Brad and his friends and his family. And Brad, we know you have a strong faith, and you believe, and we hope and we pray that you will kick cancer's ass and you will make it out onto the other side and beat this, because you could feel Brad's presence in the building, not just from what Chris was saying about Brad, but also what Scott Stapp said about Brad in the middle of Creed's set when they took the stage. And this was a really cool rendition of Away from the Sun. And the crowd enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Really cool. And then on the other acoustic side of things, Chris played one of his biggest hits, Home All Acoustic. And this was really good. And also of note, a song that really, really, really grabbed me was The Damned, because there was some screams in there that were just crushing. I'm like, my God, I haven't heard Chris hit screams like that in a while, like on a consistent basis in one track like that in a long time. And that sounded good. And obviously, It's Not Over. That song was obviously Chris's biggest hit after he left American Idol, and that kickstarted his career with his band Daltrey. That was awesome. And then closing out Chris's set, what jumped off the grid to me was that he did not end his set with It's Not Over. He ended his set with another more recent track from last year called Artificial. And normally, I do not like when artists do these like program, drum samples and songs and stuff. But in this occasion, I did not mind it. I thought it fit the song. And again, Chris hit some nice notes in this. Overall, I thought his set was pretty solid. Obviously, we wish Three Doors Down was there, but I thought it was great, that Chris made mention of Brad and Three Doors Down during the middle of his set, paying tribute and homage to Brad, wishing that he was there. And obviously, everybody in the building is pulling for Brad. We're hoping that Brad pulls through and, like I mentioned, makes it out on the other side, defeating cancer for good. And then Creed takes the stage at about 9:15. And what more can I say that hasn't already been said about this band? It is honestly amazing to me how Creed got so much shit, so much hate because of all the success that Scott Stapp and the rest of the band had with those first couple of records. Songs that charted on the radio, whether it be My Own Prison or Are You Ready or With Arms Wide Open or One or, just any song. What If, songs from those first two albums, especially Human Clay. That album is a diamond certified record. And obviously, Weathered had some huge hits, My Sacrifice and Weathered, and obviously had a great track in Bullets on that record. But it's funny how when they came back around and announced that when they were making their comeback, it is amazing how the numbers that they are breaking on a nightly basis, not just in merchandise, but obviously in ticket sales. Creed is selling out their cruises that they have done. They did 2 cruises last year in 24, sold out instantly. And then they did another one this year, and not to nobody's surprise, it sold out basically immediately as well. And next year's Summer of 99 Cruise and Beyond in 26 is already sold out too. So all of that hate, Creed is taking all of that hate, balling it up, and laughing to the bank because they are making bank. And obviously, if you go away for such a long period of time, obviously offers of money on the table are going to be super large, that it's going to be hard to turn down, especially if you are a band that is gigantic as Creed, to come back. And if you don't come back, then you're crazy, because where the money is made now is on the road, not with record sales anymore. Everybody makes money by wanting to tour and having the tour. And if you want to thrive and survive in the music industry today, you have to be willing to be a road warrior. You have to be willing to play, especially if you are a young band that isn't famous like a Creed or an AC/DC or Metallica or Maiden or, what have you, or Guns N' Roses or any other band that made it in this music business across all genres. And Creed, again, sounded so good. This was my second time going to a Creed show. And Stapp, Tremonti, Marshall, Phillips, these guys are as tight as hell. And considering it was the first show of the 2025 kickoff of the Summer of 99 tour, man, it already sounds like this band is in mid-tour form because of how tight they were with the transitions into songs, out of songs. And one thing of note that I really loved about Creed's set during Wednesday night in Kentucky, and what was also cool is Tremonti would play these like intro riffs and licks that would transition into songs. And it was just so cool that he was doing that because it really adds to the sound and obviously of what they're doing on the tour because there's no dead space. There's not a lot of, dead air, and you can't have a lot of dead air, especially at a concert because people are there to hear you play music. And if you're taking so long to get into the set, people are going to more than likely check out. But that's not happening with Creed because they constantly go, go, go. And I mean, my God, from the opening two songs, Bullets into Ode. When Tremonti started that riff to Ode, I turned to my father and I said, "Oh, that's how we're kicking things off? Just outright balls to the wall, heavy, in your face. Take no prisoners, take no shit," as Dave Mustaine from Megadeth would say on the Rust in Peace record. One of my favorite Megadeth records of all time. And Creed just has all these hits, and everybody, no matter where they go, whether it's the East Coast, the West Coast, this, or in Chicago, in the Midwest, or anywhere they go, everybody knows these songs. Everybody singing these songs. And the one word that my mother and I shared last year during Creed's opening, not the opening, it was like the third or fourth show during the 2024 tour of the Summer of 99 tour. We shared one word during that show and afterwards. Powerful. Powerful, powerful. Scott Stapp, literally, if he was a motivational speaker, how could you not be moved by that man's words? Because he has battled his demons of addiction, of drugs and alcohol. And thankfully, he's been clean and sober for years now. And this is why I think this time around, the reason why Stapp and the rest of the band sound so top notch is because Stapp obviously is in ridiculous shape. And Tremonti said last year on Eddie Trunk's show that literally Scott looks like he is going to a boxing, ring to fight for the fight of his life. And just how he is showing up and is singing his heart out on every song and is nailing these songs. And what is scary for those that have not been there, but if you pull up the clips online of Creed playing live, you will hear what I and thousands and millions of people have echoed our sentiments on how just incredible Scott sounds now singing these songs live. Because what's scary about Scott singing now is it literally sounds like he is sounding like he came from the original recordings. They're using the effects, such as songs like Torn and What If. They're using those effects on the vocals just to replicate those effects in a live setting. And obviously Creed, a band all live, no trickery, no tracks, none of that bullshit. Just great rock and roll, powerful stuff, great 16 song set by the band. And if this band is coming near you, I would not hesitate. I would spend my money because it is worth every single penny. These guys deliver such an amazing show. They have pyro, they have a light show, just all kinds of stuff. Just huge production. The biggest production they've done since their return last year to the stage. Just great, great night, great concert. And before the Creed show, my last concert that I went to was Chris Stapleton in Greensboro in June. That was a last minute concert trip. And Chris Stapleton, man, that dude can sing anything from country to rock and roll to bluegrass, whatever. The man can sing anything. And I can listen to his wife, Morgan Stapleton, sing all night long too, because she has a voice of an angel herself. And I love hearing Morgan and Chris harmonize. But that was my last concert last month in June, and they played for 2.5 hours. It was incredible. And so, wanted to give you a recap of the opening tour night in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp Arena from this past Wednesday of Creed with Mammoth and Daltrey. And now the big one. Last Saturday, one of the biggest concert events in the history of music when it comes to the worlds of hard rock and heavy metal. Heavy metal took place this past Saturday in Birmingham, England, the birthplace of heavy metal. A who's who of rock star royalty showed up, showed out for a great cause, for charity, for Parkinson's research, and obviously to the children's hospitals. A who's who of rock stars from all over the world coming together to celebrate Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath's music and paying tribute and playing songs throughout the day and the night of Ozzy and Sabbath's catalog. And gonna get to it right now, but before I give you everything that happened last week with my thoughts on everything, I want to give you my thoughts on heading into this huge event, because Ozzy, for years, for those of us that love hard rock and heavy metal music, we know the trials and tribulations that one Ozzy Osbourne has gone through over the years of having to cancel tours, because 2018 was the last time that Ozzy did a tour playing in front of a full audience. And in 2019, he had 2 tours. He had a first tour that was lined up, and that tour was scrapped because of health issues. Then the second dates that were postponed were scrapped again and outright canceled. And unfortunately, one of those dates that was canceled was a Charlotte date. And one of the nights, originally, it was going to be, I want to say the original opening act was Megadeth. And then the second opening act on the rescheduled date was Judas Priest. Either way, one of those shows would have been great if it would have happened. But obviously, unfortunately, that never happened. And just feeling bad for Ozzy. That year, he had such big plans, the No More Tours 2 tour, and that never happened in North America and all over the world in 2019. And then years passed, and in 2023, it was announced that there was going to be a festival around my birthday weekend. Actually, it was my birthday weekend in Indio, California, at where the Coachella Festival happens. And this event seemed really cool. And it was cool. The opening night on the and keep this in mind, the original ad mat for this 3-day, 2 bands a day event, first night was Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses. Night number 2, and this was the element of surprise, AC/DC, who was headlining on this. And obviously this would have been, and this would end up being Brian Johnson's first tour with the band, or first show with the band, excuse me, and their first show as a band since 2016, 7 years at that time. And also on the lineup as well was Ozzy. And I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to even perform because of all the things that he's gone through with his Parkinson's and not hardly being able to walk. And just, I mean, face it, Ozzy is in his mid-70s. The fact that he's still alive, it's a miracle. It's a blessing that he's still with us. And I know he wanted to get out there and perform in front of everybody on this festival. And day 3 was Metallica, closing it out, and Tool was before Metallica. 5 out of those 6 artists played, but not Ozzy. Judas Priest took Ozzy's spot before AC/DC. And just again, not to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but the facts are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. You're dealing with the guy who has been dealt so much adversity with his health, Parkinson's diagnosis, and just all of the things he's gone through, not hardly being able to walk, hard for him to do anything, and just feeling bad for the guy because we know where Ozzy belongs. He belongs on that stage rocking out in front of a packed house. That is Ozzy's calling. And Ozzy wanted to do this so bad. And obviously he couldn't do it. And also worthy of note, Tony Iommi was on Eddie Trunk's show during when Ozzy eventually canceled his appearance at Power Trip. And Tony came on and said that that Black Sabbath was offered the spot. And Tony and Geezer and the rest of Black Sabbath turned it down because they didn't think that Ozzy was capable of doing it. And they were not surprised that Ozzy called off the performance and stepped down and let Priest, step in his spot and play. So that's to kind of set the stage, for this Back to the Beginning concert. Because when this was announced several months ago, I was like, okay, again, on paper, this looks intriguing. Because you had Ozzy, and then you had, and here was the kicker of all kickers, the original four of Black Sabbath, of Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, the original lineup who created a genre of heaviness, of powerful music that sounded like nobody else was sounding back in the early 70s. But those first two Sabbath records, the self-titled Black Sabbath album with the title track and The Wizard, and then Paranoid with obviously Paranoid, War Pigs, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Fairies Wear Boots, so on and so forth. The years go on down the line for the first decade plus of Sabbath music was paved the way by the original founding fathers of heavy metal, Black Sabbath of Osbourne, Iommi, Butler, and Ward. And Ozzy said in interviews that he wanted to do this mainly two reasons. One, he wanted to do this again and get back on stage. And number two, he wanted Black Sabbath to go out as it was supposed to be on top in Birmingham, England, where they played their final full show on a touring basis on the end tour. And Bill Ward did not play on that tour. Tommy Clufetto's played filling in on drums because obviously Ward could not reach an agreement and had an issue with the rest of the guys as far as over money and stuff. And obviously Ward couldn't do it. And also Ward, just like Ozzy, he's had his fair share of health issues. I mean, the dude suffered at one point 3 heart attacks, and the fact that Bill Ward is still alive, that is a miracle. That is a blessing, and so grateful that him and Ozzy are still alive. And so, and also on the lineup, and this is where this made sense that this event could still go on, because next to Ozzy and Sabbath, you had Metallica. And obviously Metallica has been hitting it hard, hitting it heavy since the COVID-19 lockdown pandemic ended in 2021, and touring resumed for pretty much all bands. And Metallica obviously at the top of their game, and then you had down the lineup, you had Slayer and Guns N' Roses and Tool and Pantera, and Alice in Chains was announced eventually. And obviously other modern rock bands like Hellstorm and Rival Sons, which was nice. And I love Rival Sons and Hellstorm as well. And obviously heavy hitters like Lamb of God and Mastodon and Gojira. Just a great build. A great build. And then what was also cool, and this was also a mystery, is it was also announced that there was going to be 2 all-star groups performing. And these guest musicians that were stepping in, we were told the guest musicians that were going to be there, but we didn't know where they were going to be playing, because I loved how they kept the element of surprise with this event. And, and I also thought heading into this, was this event going to be streamed? And I was hoping that it was, because as much as I love music, I'm not going to travel out of the country with how expensive flights are these days. Like, it is expensive now, really, to fly anywhere all over the globe. And thank God on June the 6th, it was announced that the Back to the Beginning concert was going to be streamed globally for everybody to see. And I'm so glad that it was. And because not everybody can afford to go out of the country and plunk down the money for not only plane tickets, but obviously their passport, having to go out of the country, so on and so forth, and hotels and all of that stuff. So thank God, those of us that could not be there in person still got to experience this. And it was a hell of an event, and I'm going to get to it right now. Kicking off the day, Mastodon, one of the best bands of their era of progressive metal. Great set from these guys, starting off the afternoon, because they started off this entire thing. And also, real quick of note, shout outs to all of the crews of these bands setting up, tearing down, because me being in two bands, it is not easy. And I know a lot of people that are not into music, whether you're a local musician or in major bands or in club level bands. If you are not in the trenches and you don't bear witness to this stuff, you do not understand the grind that musicians go through, and these setup crews, technicians, and making sure everything sounds good. And just unreal, the setup time, because to set this up, Mastodon played at 1 to 1:15, and then Rival Sons played at 1:20. So that's 5 minutes to get everything set up. And just God bless all of these road crews of setting up everything. Just, you guys are the true MVPs of making sure this thing went on without a hitch when it comes to setting up everything, because obviously Tony Iommi said that there was a strict curfew, because they had to end on the dot. They couldn't go past the curfew. That's it. Done. So Mastodon set things off with their 3-song set, and the majority of these early bands played 3 songs, with the exception of Anthrax, who played 2 songs. But Mastodon got things started with their 3-song set, playing 2 originals in a row. They played Black Tongue and one of my favorites, Blood and Thunder. That was awesome. And then what became a common thread throughout the entire day and night was the covers of Ozzy and Sabbath's music. And Mastodon was the first band to have a cover. And they picked out Supernaut. And this was awesome. And unfortunately, there was a couple of sound issues that went on during the broadcast, such as during Braun singing this song. The drummer of Mastodon, they have 2 lead singers, Braun the drummer and Troy the bass player. And unfortunately, Braun's microphone for 3/4 of the way for us here at home could not hear him singing. But everybody that was there heard every word that he said, and that he sang, obviously. And fortunately, because of technology, this was fixed in post-production, thank God. So Mastodon sounded great, and then Rival Sons took the stage, playing a 3-song set. One of my favorite originals, Do Your Worst. And then their Sabbath cover was Electric Funeral, and that kicked ass. Unreal. Everybody in the band sounded amazing. Jay's powerful vocals. Holy shit. And I keep screaming from the rooftops on how Rival Sons is one of the most criminally underrated bands of the modern rock era. If you have never heard these guys, check them out. They have great, great rock and roll music. Scott Holiday's guitar on Electric Funeral literally sounded like Iommi's crushing riff from the Paranoid record that came out in 1970, and the rest of the band sounded amazing on this cover. Dave's bass lines of covering Geezer's parts sounded great. And Michael Miley, one of my favorite drummers of the modern era, kicked ass as well on this cover. And at the end of the cover, Buchanan with those powerful vocals. How the hell is he even able to sing at such a high level? It is beyond me. Just an incredible talent. If you are a true musician, and trust me, the musicians know who Jay Buchanan is. And following Electric Funeral was one of their other originals and one of my other favorites, Secret. That obviously sounded great live. Great band. Been to their shows multiple times. If they ever come near you, please go and check them out. You will not be disappointed. And real quick, before I move on to the next band, Anthrax, on the build, I do want to say about Rival Sons, as far as checking out their work. My favorite album, essentially, it's a double album. It came out in 2023 called Dark Fighter. That's the first half. And then the second half is called Lightbringer. They both came out individually. Dark Fighter came out in June of 23, and then Lightbringer came out in October of 23. But I took both Dark Fighter and Lightbringer and put them together as one full body of work. And to me, in my humble opinion, Dark Fighter, Lightbringer, from top to bottom, it is their best work in their entire career. Just from the opening notes of Mirrors to the closing track of Mosaic. Just a great, powerful album of heaviness, melodicness, just great, great stuff. Does not disappoint. I mean, alone, a lot of these songs, Mirrors, Nobody Wants to Die, Dark Side, Sweet Life, a lot of these songs from this album, Guillotine, some of these songs, just off the top of my head, these are very fun to play on drums. And another great album from Rival Sons also is Feral Roots that came out in 2019. They also have another great album called Great Western Valkyrie. And another great album is Pressure in Time. That was the album that came out in 2011. And their EP, still titled Rival Sons, has some great stuff such as Get What's Coming, and one of my favorites to play on drums, Sleepwalker. And that song is a banger live. Great shit. Rival Sons, check them out. You will not be disappointed. Hell, while you're at it, check out the entire discography of Rival Sons. Good stuff. And speaking of good, moving on down the lineup, Anthrax, one of the big members of the Big Four of thrash metal, of obviously representing Metallica, Slayer, and Megadeth. Anthrax from New York City took the stage, and they had 15 minutes. And whatever time you're given, maximize your minutes. And Anthrax did just that. From the opening drum grooves of one of the greatest drummers, Charlie Benante. Of course, what am I talking about? Of course, you know it. You love it if you're an Anthrax fan. Indians. Kick-ass track from the Among the Living record. Classic stuff. And then they bust out their Black Sabbath cover. They played Into the Void. And this was amazing. Belladonna just nailing those vocals. Scotty in on the guitar. Benante on the drums. Frank Bello on the bass, just killing it. Everybody locked in, playing this bad boy pretty much note for note, and everybody in the crowd of 40,000 plus, and over 5 million people enjoyed this. This was really, really good, and this really got the crowd going really early on. And I tell you what, The goods just keep on coming, ladies and gentlemen, because my girl, Lizzie Hale, and her band Hailstorm were the next band to take the stage, and holy shit, Lizzie's vocals was so good during their entire set. Opening up with Love Bites and So Do I, and then they played what was released yesterday as their brand new single from their soon to be released album Everest, which comes out next month on August the 8th. The current and latest single, and they played this last Saturday, Rain Your Blood on Me. And this is a great track. And what I love about this album so far with these singles that Lizzie, that Joe, that Josh, and that her brother RJ have crafted in the studio, this sounds like something the band has never done. They sound more real and raw with these songs that have been released so far. Darkness Always Wins, the title track, Everest, and this latest single, Rain Your Blood on Me. And this song sounds so good live. I cannot wait to go to another Hailstorm show just to hear the new material. And if you are not liking this new material, personally, in my opinion, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you, but I think this new material is even better. And I will go on record in saying that to me, this will go down as their best overall body of work. And the album hasn't even dropped yet, and that is saying something. There is so much room to breathe with the music from this band now, because now they're doing things that they have never done. They are writing music that honestly, I don't think the radio on the mainstream side or Sirius XM is ready for, because Rain Your Blood on Me just has this bone crushing riff that will slap you in the face and will have your jaw literally on the floor. And Lizzie's vocals, RJ's backing vocals, drumming, the riff from Joe, the bass line from Josh, just great, great stuff during this song last Saturday at Back to the Beginning. And also, they covered a surprise, in my opinion, that nobody had this on our bingo cards. Perry Mason from arguably, you can call it a deep cut from the Osmosis album that came out back in 1995. And everybody killed their parts on this track, from the drumming by RJ, the bass line, the guitar parts by both Joe and by Lizzie. Everybody sounded amazing on this track, covering this classic deep track. Lizzie's vocals, the guitar solo, RJ's backing vocals, everything about this was spot on, perfect. Amazing shit. Amazing. Great 3-song set by Hailstorm. And following Hailstorm, the intensity was ramped up to 11 because, yes, Lamb of God from Richmond, Virginia took the stage next. And Randy, man, oh man, what more can I say about this guy that I haven't said already? Randy is a powerhouse live. He thrives on crowd participation. The energy that this crowd in England had was just amazing, because I could feel the energy coming through my computer speakers. Because if you don't feel that shit, then you ain't human, my friends. And Lamb of God took the stage, and the entire band was firing on all cylinders. Their 3-song set was as follows: Laid to Rest, Redneck, and then they closed things out with their rendition of Children of the Grave. And this was fucking amazing. This was spectacular. Amazing stuff. Randy's mix of clean and guttural vocals was really, really good. Loved it. The drumming by Art Cruz, Mark Morton, and Willie Adler, just laying down those guitar tracks. Laying down those guitar tracks. The entire band was firing on all cylinders. And John Campbell's bass, man, he sounded so good on Geezer's parts from Children of the Grave. Everybody in this band played this song and they made it their own. And this is the one thing that's going to become a common thread from my review from Back to the Beginning was how every artist and band that covered an Ozzy and or Sabbath song made it their own. Good stuff. Good stuff by Lamb of God. Great 3-song set. And then following Lamb of God, it was the first of 2 supergroups, as Tom Morello was the orchestrator and the architect of these supergroups. The first one titled Supergroup A. And this overall shocked the hell out of me. And Lizzie Hell took the stage along with Nuno Bettencourt, and Nuno is going to be getting shouted out throughout this entire broadcast because Nuno saved the day with this concert, with his incredible performances, playing 12 songs. And Lizzie took the stage along with, to my surprise, and I'm glad that he was able to make it because of circumstances of being shot last year, Jake E. Lee. Yes, the legend guitarist himself. The legendary guitarist himself, ladies and gentlemen, Jake E. freaking Lee was announced to be on this lineup, and he absolutely delivered. He sounded overall really good. And David Ellison took the stage, Mike Borden took the stage, and they played a couple of classics in a row from Jake's catalog, playing The Ultimate Sin. Lizzie sung that one and killed it. And then David Draymond took the stage from Disturbed, and he sang Shot in the Dark. And this is one of the performances where, although it wasn't bad, it wasn't one of my favorite Draymond vocal performances. I mean, again, it wasn't bad by any stretch, but to me, I felt like that Draymond was trying to put too much David Draymond, the Disturbed type vocal in this. It was just a little too much with that type of vocal. Although it wasn't bad, but it wasn't his best vocal performance. But also shout outs to Adam Wakeman, longtime Ozzy Osbourne keyboard player in his solo band as well. And Draymond next sang Sweet Leaf, and to me, leaps and boundaries better with Draymond's vocals on Sweet Leaf. And Scott Ian came out and played guitar on this with Nuno, and this was killer. This was absolutely killer. And then after Draymond's 2 songs, then Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe came out, and they did, I would call it a deep cut, Believer. And Nuno Bettencourt, my freaking God, he sounded amazing on Believer. That solo, man, is not easy. And Nuno makes it look so easy. Like, not even trying. Like, Nuno can play anything under the sun. Huh, pun intended. And we're going to get to that. Anyways, so everybody in this supergroup sounded really good. And Crane, you could tell he was having a damn good time up there on stage and getting the crowd going. Everybody was having a good time. And then another surprise came when it was announced that pretty much everybody, myself, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the chat on the stream that were watching, and the majority of the 40,000 plus inside that stadium did not know who this kid, Youngblood, is. I didn't know who he was. And I was like, who? Who's Youngblood? I'm willing to give it a chance, but the poor kid was getting booed pretty much from the get-go. And I'm like, y'all haven't even heard him sing yet. Like, let's give the kid a chance. And this right here was so powerful because it is so amazing how going from getting booed and then immediately having that audience in the palm of your hands. And I've said it, David Ellefson has said it, and a lot of people have said that this performance by Youngblood on Ozzy's and Black Sabbath's song Changes was Freddie Mercury Live Aid type levels of stuff. This was so good, shocked the hell out of me. I did not hear that vocal coming out of that kid's lungs. My God, so powerful, so moving. If you were not captivated by Youngblood's performance, then my friend, you don't have no ounce of emotion in the fiber of your being, because this performance of Changes was out of left field. And again, I'm going to say it again. I might sound like a broken record, but I do not give a shit at this point. These guys, Nuno Bettencourt, Youngblood, and the rest of that supergroup took this track that had no bass, no guitar, no drums, and they took this track and they made it their own. Where do I even begin with this? Yeah, the piano sounded the same, obviously, because that's how it was recorded. The vocals, so powerful, so moving, like I said. But the instrumentation, the bass lines, the drumming, the guitar melodies and notes and solo by Nuno Bettencourt were so damn good. Everybody on that stage over delivered on a performance that will be remembered from this entire special event. An event that had bands like Metallica, obviously, and Slayer and Pantera and Tool and Guns N' Roses. Just incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. And this is why music is my passion, y'all. Because music speaks to you on so many levels. Whether you're happy, you're sad, you're angry, you're pissed off and mad about it, as Texas Hippie Coalition once wrote back several years ago. Oh my God. I'm so fired up doing this for y'all. This is my passion. I love music. It is what I do. As Mark Henry once said, that's what I do. I love this stuff. And I cannot think of a better time to do a special broadcast on this, our Nation Sports Show YouTube channel, instead of talking about the world of sports and talking about music, my passion. And the solo, like I said, by Nuno, so good. And at the very end, Youngblood having that audience singing to the top of their lungs on that chorus, I'm going through changes. So powerful, so moving. It spoke to everybody there and at home. Just amazing, amazing performance by everybody. And then in a pre-recorded part capping off the supergroup performance, because obviously he couldn't be there in attendance, the one and only lead singer of Tenacious D himself, Jack Black, sang his rendition of Mr. Crowley. And one of the musicians in that lineup was Tom Morello's kid, and this fella right there slayed that guitar solo. So good. And obviously Jack Black can sing himself. He's obviously in a rock band himself, obviously, like I mentioned, Tenacious D. And everybody played really well on this pre-recorded version of Mr. Crowley. Good stuff. And then, finally, Alice in Chains took the stage for the first time in 2025, because unfortunately, back in May, it was announced that Sean Kinney, unfortunately, due to a non-life-threatening medical emergency, could not play. And Alice in Chains was forced to cancel all of their tour dates. And I have to commend Jerry Cantrell, Mike Inez, and William Duvall for standing by their guy, because Alice in Chains had dates lined up in the month of May, including several festival appearances. They were supposed to play at Welcome to Rockville. They were supposed to play at the festival that I was at in Columbus, Ohio, Sonic Temple Music and Arts Festival, and they were also supposed to play at the Boardwalk Rock Festival in Ocean City, Maryland, replacing Motley Crue. But they didn't because they made the decision to stand by Kenny and wait for him to get better with his uh, non-life threatening medical emergency and whatever he was dealing with, because it was not announced what he was dealing with. And honestly, guys, we do not need to know these guys and girls on what they go through, because it is not up to us to know all of their personal life details and stuff. So glad that Sean Kenny is back on stage, and Alice in Chains sounded so damn good. They opened up with two of their classics and two of my favorites to play also on drums, Man in the Box and Wood. And then their cover of choosing was Black Sabbath's Fairies Wear Boots. And this was a kick-ass rendition of Fairies Wear Boots. And unfortunately, just like with Mastodon's performance of Supernaut, initially throughout the broadcast, the audio cut out for some reason during the beginning, really, of the song when it was getting going. And glad that it was fixed in post-production, but it was also later replayed in the middle of the broadcast. I believe it was played I believe it was following either Slayer or before Guns N' Roses set. So that was really cool that got played before, or afterward, excuse me, during the tech issue. Great rendition of Fairies Wear Boots. Everybody played their parts right and very well. Mike Inez with that kick-ass geezer bass line that he wrote years ago. Obviously, Sean Kenny, one of my favorite all-time drummers and an inspiration for me to pick up a pair of sticks, killing those drum grooves and those drum fills that Bill Ward wrote years ago as well. And the man himself, the Axeman of his era, Jerry Cantrell, knocking out that Iommi riff and solo as well. And shout outs to William Duvall of making this cover his very own, because Duvall did not go out there and try to sound like Ozzy. He tried to sound like his own self, because after all, he is his own lead singer. He's not trying to go out there and sound just like the original recordings, because nobody will sound like Ozzy, no matter how hard you try. Well, except for Zakk Wylde, because Zakk Wylde can do Ozzy stuff and do Ozzy's voice pretty damn well, because obviously he's played with the man off and on since the late 80s. But I digress. So Alice in Chains sounded really good. And then Gojira took the stage, the Metal Titans from France. And brothers Joe and Mario, man, you can tell these guys are locked in with the rest of the band, because obviously when you are in a band with your brother, you are locked in. And Mario, man, he is one of the greatest drummers of the modern metal era, man. And just, they sounded so good. And Gojira seems to be riding this wave of momentum, because they came off playing at the Olympics last year in France, and plus they were the main direct support to Korn during the 2024 tour last year. Just really cool momentum for Gojira into 25, and really cool that they got to be a part of this Back to the Beginning concert, and their set was great. Of note, the first two songs, Stranded in Silvera, back to back, killer, love those tracks. And I am not about to even dare pronounce the song that they covered, or that they wrote and recorded and performed at the Olympics in France from last year, because I'm not going to butcher it and piss off all the people in France and stuff, because I don't want people after me saying, "Hey, you butchered the name of the song." Like, I'm American, sorry. Anyways, and shout outs to the opera singer. She sounded amazing backing up Joe and the rest of the band singing with those operatic vocals. And Gojira's cover of choice was another deep cut, Under the Sun from Black Sabbath. And this was, again, I sound like a broken record, guys. Sorry, not sorry. Awesome. Everybody, as far as the musicians wise, played their parts, and obviously Mario nailing those drum fills, sounding so good. And Joe's vocals, man, he made it his own too. Like he wasn't, again, not trying to sound like Ozzy, because nobody will ever duplicate or replicate those unique vocals from the Ozman himself. Great set by Gojira. And then following Gojira's performance, there was a nice little change up. There was a drum off. There was a drum off featuring drummers Travis Barker from Bleak 182, Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and also Danny Carey from Tool. And on guitar was Tom Morello, and on bass was Rudy Sarzo. And they decided to play Symptom of the Universe. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, Steven, how can you defend a performance with just drums and bass and guitar? Well, let me tell you guys, you don't have to feel music with just with the lyrics too inside the music as well. Because if you are a musician, you feel that shit, no matter if there is vocals or not. And I know probably somebody wanted to sing this one too in one of the covers, of the night, but obviously not everybody can do that. Everybody pretty much had to play one song, and if obviously you were a bigger band, you had to say so, pretty much. But sorry, not sorry, I'm going to defend this because obviously I am a drummer, and it was really cool hearing three drummers synced up together on the same groove, playing that great groove that Bill Ward wrote. Try saying that fast. That Bill Ward wrote years and years ago, and Barker and Smith and Carey each playing their own drum fills, making this their very own. Really good performance by everybody involved. And then the second super group took the stage. Super Group B. And this right here had some great performances as well. Kicking it off, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins took the stage, along with KK Downing. He took the stage. That was really cool that KK got to be up there, Rudy Sarzo up there, Adam Jones from Tool up there, and just everybody having a great time. Tom Morello up there, everybody having a great time on stage, playing, breaking the law, and really cool for everybody involved. And you could tell that even Billy Corgan, who was doing his best Rob Halford impersonation, it was hilarious that he was even doing that. I'm like, what the hell is this? But I got it. He was having fun up there on stage. I get it. And then, to my surprise, Billy Corgan sounded so good singing on Snowblind. Everybody involved sounded really good on this. And just really good performance on this cover. And you could tell that Billy and the rest of the guys in the super group were having a great time playing this Sabbath classic. And after that, the Red Rocker himself, Sammy Hagar, took the stage, and Chad Smith took the drums as well. And Nuno Betancourt, obviously, still on stage kicking ass, like he always has throughout this entire portion of the broadcast, all night long. Sammy took the stage, and they performed Flying High again. Now, again, there were some sound issues on the initial broadcast of the live stream because for some weird reason, you couldn't hear the drum set. Now, obviously, with me being blind and visually impaired, obviously, I can't see. I hear things, very well, and I'm picking up on the audio. And I'm going, wait a minute. I know this song starts off with drums and everything coming in, but why don't I hear the beat? I'm like, is Chad Smith doing something wrong? And then I was reading the comments, and people were going, you would think that they would turn up the sound on the second drum set. And I'm going, oh, that's what it is they didn't have the audio turned up all the way on the drums during the start of Flying High again. But again, like with Mastodon and Alice in Chains' performances with the initial audio issues, those problems were fixed in post-production, and thankfully they were for the video on demand feed. And for me, Sammy, as much as I love Sammy to death, I think they could have picked a better song to cover. I just don't think that song fit Sammy's voice at all. I really don't. And plus, he really wasn't that familiar with the song at all. And so overall, everybody sounded pretty solid on this, especially Nuno Betancourt. Nuno killing that solo. My God. Randy Rhoads stuff, not easy to play. And so is Jake Lee stuff, not easy to play as well. Moving on, they then went right into Rock Candy in one of my favorite Montrose songs from the classic 1973 Montrose record. You know it, you love it, and everybody sounded great on this. And I know Tom Morello gets a lot of flack, but I like Morello's style. I don't care. If you don't like my opinion, it's okay. I don't care anyways. It's my opinion. You don't like it, oh well, whatever. But if you do agree with me, then cool. If you don't, it's okay. It's all right. We can still be friends. We can agree to disagree. But Morello played his own solo, made it his own as always, because obviously Tom Morello has that very recognizable and most distinguishable guitar tone and sound as well. And then Tobias came out from Ghost, the lead singer of Ghost, and they did a pretty solid rendition of Bark at the Moon. And my one gripe with this cover, Rudy Sarzo was out there, but Tommy Aldridge, the guy who wrote that song, recorded that song with that Ozzy lineup, with Jake Lee, Rudy Sarzo, and Ozzy. Obviously, Jake writing the song. He deserves his credits. Give it to him, please, on both Bark at the Moon and the Ultimate Sin records. Damn it. That was my one gripe, was that Tommy Aldridge should have been there playing alongside his comrade in Rudy Sarzo, who performed on the original studio recording. Nuno Betancourt yet again kicked ass with this cover. Again, like Nuno has said, and he said it this past Monday on Eddie Trunk's show, that it is not easy playing Randy stuff, playing Jakey Lee stuff, because of the technicality, the phrasing on the melodies and the chords and the progressions, the solos. It's not easy stuff, but Nuno makes it look so easy, like I stated when he was playing during the first supergroup number A. And Tobias sounded pretty good singing Bark at the Moon. He kind of made it his own as well. And then we get to the holy shit of the entire day and night. The Demon of Scream himself, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, alongside legendary guitarists of the Rolling Stones. Ronnie Wood took the stage, and poor Ronnie Wood, he was obviously overshadowed by Steven Tyler's presence and performance. Steven Tyler is the only one who can get away without doing an Ozzy and or Sabbath song. Nobody cared because of who was on stage gracing everybody with his presence. And my freaking God, he is back, sounding like old Steven Tyler, sounding kick-ass with those powerful screams and powerful vocals. Just, my God. Train kept a rolling from that song all the way to the end of his 3-song set. And I'm going to break it all down because this was too damn good. Steven Tyler sounded so good on this, and Nuno Betancourt nailing not just the guitar parts, but obviously harmonizing with Tyler on them backup vocals. And you can tell that Nuno, that Steven were locked in together like they've been in a band. You know, obviously they aren't in a band together, but that just goes to show you how the professionals of professionals, they know what the hell they're doing. And Betancourt and Tyler were synced up, locked up, just kicking ass, taking names on that stage, and the entire crowd was whipped into a frenzy. And this was amazing. Amazing. And then It ramped up to 11 when the supergroup broke out into the classic, you know it, Walk This Way. And Steven Tyler commanding the stage, commanding the spotlight, taking the entire 40,000 audience and also the 5 million audience that tuned in from the streams on their computers, their phones, what have you. He took 40,000 people in that audience and the rest of us at home on a ride of a lifetime that will have us remembering this legendary performance for a very long time. Steven Tyler sounded like he could do maybe not a full tour because that is stretching it because the dude is in his mid 70s. But there is no reason why that man and the rest of his Aerosmith bandmates cannot do 2 shows in a week. Do what AC/DC has been doing on this Europe tour last year into North America this year. And obviously they're in Europe right now. Play a couple of shows during the week and take 3-4 days off to rest your vocal cords. People will travel. Hell, I would travel to see Aerosmith play. I love Aerosmith. I love their music. As a matter of fact, my favorite Aerosmith body of work is the 70s because it's more gritty, it's more raw, has a lot more swagger. And you could feel the swagger, the intensity on that stage from Steven Tyler's presence because he was back sounding like the guy that sounded like back in the early 70s, just owning the stage and just amazing shit. And Nuno on that freaking solo, just grooving it up, kicking ass, feeling it. And after Walk This Way, they transitioned into Whole Lotta Love. My God. It was amazing. Everybody. Chad Smith obviously played on the Walk This Way cover as well because he played on the final 4 songs, Flying High Again, or 5 songs technically. Flying High Again, Rock Candy, Train Kept a Rolling, Walk This Way, and then the brief snippet of Whole Lotta Love. Amazing. Chad Smith, I thought, sounded really good with his performance on these tracks. And you could tell Rudy Sarzo was having a damn good time on that stage. He had, and obviously I have to go off what people are saying, but on the radio, Eddie said it. Ellefson said it. Nuno said it. Everybody said it. Rudy Sarzo had the biggest grin. He was having such a great time on that stage. It was amazing. Just amazing. Steven Tyler channeling his inner Robert Plant. My freaking God. It was amazing. Amazing. Amazing performance. This to me, and as much as of a Metallica fan as I am, I mean, even though Metallica sounded great, Pantera sounded great, Slayer and Tool and Ozzy and Sabbath, they all sounded great. But to me, Steven Tyler stole the whole weekend because nobody saw that coming. Literally, I didn't. But literally and figuratively, nobody saw this coming. Nobody had this on their bingo card. This was so good. So good. And then after the second supergroup finished, Pantera took the stage. And what more do I need to say about these guys? Because this second incarnation of Pantera, as I call it, Pantera 2.0, with the great Zakk Wylde standing in for the late great Dimebag Darrell Abbott on guitar, and Charlie Benante standing in playing drums for the late great Vinnie Paul. These guys were and are the rightful choices to stand in and represent Dime and Vinnie's legacy that Pantera built when they founded that group in Dallas, Texas, back in the 80s. And again, Phil has said this from the stage multiple times that this is for Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell Abbott. And full of class, full of dignity, the right way to do it, paying tribute to the guys who created one of the most legendary metal bands that still stands the test of time. These songs stand the test of time after all these years when they were recorded back in the 90s. So Pantera set, they played Cowboys from Hell, Walk, Planet Caravan, and then to my shocker, they played the only song that was duplicated on the entire whole day and night of this Back to the Beginning concert. They played Electric Funeral. And I'm not going to sit here and say that one was better than the other because I could make the argument that J.B. Cannon's vocals were better, but I'm not going to do that because both bands' versions of Electric Funeral sounded amazing because Rival Sons made it more of the traditional recording, from back in the day. But Pantera, back then when Dime and Vinny and Rex and Phil recorded that cover back in the day, they made that shit 10 times more heavy in your face. And I love this version as well. And I love how they extended it at the very end as well. I mean, this was sludgy as hell. It was kick ass, so good. Loved how they ended this set with Electric Funeral. And real quickly, Planet Caravan. The cover that was on Far Beyond Driven. And my God, I have not heard Philip Anselmo hit notes like this in a long time from a clean melodic standpoint. Because I thought it was going to be hard for him to do the clean singing because obviously with him being older now, he pretty much relies on the heavier stuff because it has obviously the grit and obviously the power that he recorded, and that's what he primarily would sing anyways. Obviously, at Phil's age, he can't sing Cemetery Gates because that song is, face it, it's, let's be honest, guys, it's too high. It's too freaking high for Phil to even sing today. So great set by Pantera, and then after Pantera, Tool took the stage. And Tool is one of those bands, either you love them or you hate them. And I know our very own Ezra here on the sports show, he's not the biggest Tool, he's not a big Tool guy. He's not a Tool fan at all. And I totally respect his opinion. And I get it because initially, not gonna lie, guys, Tool was one of those bands I couldn't get into initially. Because their sound is so different. It's not straight up, rock. It's very progressive. And I would equate Tool sound to being more of a progressive metal version of Pink Floyd. Because Pink Floyd is also, like Tool, one of those bands, either you get them or you don't. And I happen to like both Pink Floyd and Tool, but that's my opinion. Tool, I thought, sounded really good. And also, real quick of note, this was also historic for Tool because for the very first time, Tool was shot professionally in a concert setting. Never before has a professional broadcast captured Tool's performances ever officially. Officially. And Tool, I thought, sounded great, like they always do. Such great musicians. I thought that they played a great 3-song set, playing two of their classics, 46 and 2, and then at the end they played Anima, but sandwiched in was a Black Sabbath cover, and their cover of choice was Hand of Doom. And I thought that Slayer was going to cover that, but they didn't. And Maynard, I thought, sounded really good singing this song. He made it his own. Danny Carey, Adam Jones, and Justin Chancellor, they all made this song their own. They made this song their own from an instrumentation. Carey doing his own drumming at times. Mainly everybody stuck to the written and recorded record. But Maynard was the only one that made this song his own. Because obviously, like I keep stating, He's not going to go out there and try to sound like Ozzy. Great set by Tool. I love, I love the transition real quick. I love the transition between Hand of Doom and the Anima. That was really cool and how it was perfected. Great set by Tool. Very cool that they were invited and that they, wanted to be a part of this because they were obviously influenced by Sabbath, and everybody that was a part of this was obviously influenced by Sabbath. Then after Tool, Slayer took the stage, and Slayer, they came back around last year in 2024, and that is still a big shocking thing to me that that band, who was one of those men that said we'll never come back, but they did because obviously the almighty dollar reigns supreme, my friends, and obviously it's obviously not a surprise that Tom Araya and Kerry King, they don't get along. Obviously, when you're in a major band like that, you don't have to be in the same room at all times. You can go about your business on stage, playing the gig that you're playing, and then after that, go your separate ways, and then go on about your business and your personal life. But with that being said, I thought that Slayer sounded really good. Tom vocally sounded pretty solid throughout the entire set. Kerry King and Gary Holt sounded really good on guitar, and Paul Bostaff on them drums, playing and doing. Uh, the majority of the set was obviously Dave Lombardo songs that Lombardo wrote back in the day with Slayer, and he played those parts really well as well. Pretty solid set by Slayer. The band I thought sounded pretty solid on this set, and the crowd was whipped like they were with Lamb of God into a frenzy. The mosh pits were going. Everybody was losing their collective minds when Slayer took the stage. And their cover was interesting because obviously sandwiched in between, classics such as War Ensemble and South of Heaven and Raining Blood and Angel of Death, they decided to play Wicked World as their Black Sabbath cover. That was a surprise, in my opinion, because I thought they were going to do Hand of Doom because they recorded that cover for the second Sabbath tribute record. Slayer, I thought sounded really, overall solid. Araya, for the most part, sounded really good with his vocals, but the rest of the band sounded really good throughout the entire set. And then we get to the most flat out embarrassment of all embarrassments. Yes, you knew this was coming if you were following me on social media. Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses. Holy shit, was he abysmal on that stage. He sounded so god awful the entire set. Now, the one thing I will give GNR this is they performed pretty much their whole set, pretty much was Black Sabbath covers. And I will give them that. The fact that they did that, I thought that was really cool for them to do that. I did not have that on my bingo card. But what I did have on my bingo card was I said heading into this event that Axl Rose outright was going to be the worst singer on that stage, having to follow Lizzie Hale and Jay Buchanan and Youngblood and freaking Sammy Hagar and David Draymond and all of those talents that could actually sing and carry a tune in a fucking bucket. Axl Rose, what in God's name are you doing, man? Like, I understand you did this because your love for Ozzy and Sabbath's music, but Jesus, Lord, have God mercy. Almighty, this was so bad. This was abysmal. This was by far. The worst vocal performance I have ever heard in my life in a very long time. And I went on a 3 tweet spree just bashing the ever living shit out of Axl's performance. Oh my God, it was so bad. Now, don't get me wrong, the rest of the band sounded really top notch. I mean, Slash, one of the greatest guitar players to ever do it. Overall, excuse me, overall, like I said, the rest of the band, Slash, Duff, the current drummer, a Carpenter, they sounded great. But my God, Axl, hang it up, man. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad on so many levels. Like, Axl, at times, was singing behind the band out of key. He was so abysmal. They were so bad on Axl's part because I felt bad for Isaac Carpenter and for Slash and for Duff McKagan and the rest of the band. This was so bad. And what made this even worse on Axl's part, two reasons. Well, a lot of reasons. One, to start off the show, and I'm going to run through every single damn song on this list because this deserves to be talked about and analyzed from every song on their set list. They opened up with a shortened version of It's Alright. And no, Axl, this was not alright because read the damn room. You are having to follow Slayer and Metallica, two members of the Big Four, two of the Big Four bands of thrash metal. Read the freaking room, Axl Rose. This was garbage. And what made this even worse, it was awkward as hell because Axl hits the first note on the piano, starts singing, then he stops and he goes, "Hey, can you guys hear me?" And I'm going, "Nah, you don't say." Everybody in the audience obviously could hear him, but little did they know, and little did we know, sitting at home, and those of us, and then the rest of them that were there, little did we know we were in for one of the worst vocal performances of all time. This was so bad. And whoever defends this shit, you need to have your ears examined, checked, to be sure that they are working normally and functioning like they're supposed to. Because Axl Rose absolutely stunk out the entire joint on that stage in Birmingham, England, embarrassing himself in front of the 40,000 fans, the 5 million people watching this at home, and most of all, the rest of his bandmates. Carpenter, Duff, and Slash are probably thinking to themselves, "Man, yeah, the check's great, but damn, this dude sucks." Because I'd be thinking the same thing if I was in that band, having to sit there and listen to, especially if you're doing a full freaking tour of 3.5 hours of having to hear some shitty vocal performances on a nightly basis for the most part, because Axl just doesn't have it anymore. Oh, freaking retire, man. And then after that shitty It's Alright performance, they broke out into another stunning song choice. And I will give the band credit on this. They decided on some beat cuts. And they chose cuts from Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. And up next on the set was the title track, Never Say Die. And again, the musicians in the band sounded great. Axl, nope. Moving on down the line, Junior's Eyes, yet again, Axl Rose sounded like shit. Rest of the band sounded really good. But this is when I lost my mind. Sabbath, bloody Sabbath. Holy shit, was this dog crap. Axl sounding like if, and I am not lying, guys, I said it to my friend Bo on the phone. When I called him, I said, "Dude, what the fuck is this? This is so bad. This literally sounds like if Elmo and Mickey Mouse was trying to front a rock band. Those are my literal words, and Bo was hysterically laughing his ass off. And how could you not laugh your ass off at Axl? This was so bad on so many levels. It was just an embarrassment to listen to him butcher this song. And he said afterwards, that was fun. No, it wasn't. What are you talking about? If you could actually hear yourself on how bad you sounded, it was the worst performance of the entire night. At one point, Axl was 3 to 4 beats behind. It was that bad. It was that bad. Oh my God. It was that bad. Oh, but on a positive note, on a positive note, on a positive note, Slash and the rest of the band sounded really good on their parts, nailing this song and perfecting it, just having a blast, just playing this classic. And also, real quick, before I continue on the final two songs, J. Buchanan from Rival Sons sang Sabbath Bloody Sabbath at Eddie Trunk's 40th anniversary party a year and a half ago in Vegas. And if you can find the footage of that, and I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube, the crowd that was there took video of that. It sounded really good, but what I really can't wait is to hear the pro shot and when that 40th anniversary concert comes out, because Jay Buchanan is hitting vocals that I have never heard him hit before, notes that were so high, and singing the song in the original key that Ozzy sang in 1971. Or let me double check that. Um, yeah, singing that song, in its original key. And let's see, Never Say Die, or excuse me, not Never Say Die. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath came out in 1973. Yeah, singing a song that came out in 1973 in the original key. Amazing. J. Buchanan sounded so good singing that song. But moving on to a shitty performance by Axl Rose, Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City. Both equally awkward and both equally even more shittier as they went. Because hearing him butcher Black Sabbath's music and then hearing him butcher his own material that he wrote with the band, dude, wake up, retire. Like the song goes, money is all that you desire. Why don't you pack it in and retire? You're antisocial. My God. Just awful, 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 awful. Again, like I stated, with the Sabbath covers on Never Say Die and especially Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, he was behind or ahead of the band at times on vocals and on the rhythms as well, behind and or a couple of beats ahead. Just so bad. So bad. Now, getting all that negative energy out to talk about the good stuff the rest of the way. Because after GNR's awful, well, not GNR, scratch that. After Axl's awful performance of Guns N' Roses, the rest of Guns N' Roses musicians sounded top notch, as they do. Metallica was the next band on the stage, and Metallica, as always, sounded really good. As I stated, they started touring again in 2021, and you can just tell that Lars is locked in now. He is staying on time. He's not getting behind the beat. He's not getting ahead on the beat. He's not getting ahead of himself. He's actually going into rehearsals and practicing and putting in the time, putting in the work, and all of that stuff, wanting the material to be good. And Metallica, I went to 3 shows of theirs this year. I went to the, like I mentioned, the Sonic Temple Festival, a 4-day festival in Columbus, Ohio. And then me and my buddy Bo and Matt went to the Charlotte show in late May. Awesome, awesome stuff. Metallica's set was rather interesting because they decided to open up with the cover that I thought Pantera was going to open up with. I thought, or not open it with, I thought Pantera was going to cover that song in their set. But Metallica had the guts to open up with Hole in the Sky. And that was really good. Really, really good. And this version of Hole in the Sky, it literally sounded like Garage Inc. from 1998. Hetfield's vocals, Kirk and Lars nailing their parts, and Rob sounded really good on this bass line, man. And Rob, to me, he is the best bass player to happen to Metallica since the late, great Cliff Burton. Now, obviously, Jason Newsted, and that's another time for another day, but Jason Newsted is one of the greatest backup vocals when it comes to bass players and stuff. Anyways, moving on into their set after a great rendition of Hole in the Sky, they went into 2 of their classics, Creeping Death and For Whom the Bell Tolls. Great stuff as always. And then they transition into another deep cut of Black Sabbath material, doing Johnny Blade. And this was really good. Yet again, from the Never Say Die album. An album that gets bashed its living brains in by critics because it's not great, because it's going up against, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Paranoid and Masters of Reality and the self-titled Black Sabbath album or Black Sabbath Volume 4. You name it. Like, those albums alone are better than Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die. And but yeah, I thought Metallica's choices of covers was really, really cool. And I loved how they mixed in these covers with obviously their own great originals. And then after that great rendition of Johnny Blade by the band, everybody, again, as previously stated, nailing their parts. Because Metallica is one of the bands that does so good at perfecting covers and making covers their own. Then Metallica finishes off their set with Battery and my favorite Metallica song, Master of Puppets. And also, quick of note, one note from their set, and I can speak, from experience, being to so many Metallica shows over the years, Creeping Death is an experience. Being in that audience and chanting at the top of your lungs in that bridge section, die, die, die. Just so good. So good to experience that in a live setting. Gets the entire arena and or stadium going. And it's also a great opener on a concert tour. And then we get to the main event. The Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy, his backing band throughout this performance was, of course, his right-hand man, off and on for over 30 years, Zakk Wylde. On bass, Mike Inez, now obviously of Alice in Chains for over 30 years. Drummer Tommy Clufetos, who has drummed with Ozzy solo and with Black Sabbath on their last tour at the end. And also longtime keyboard player Adam Wakeman stepped in playing keys as well with the rest of the band. And I was completely surprised. I did not expect Ozzy to sound remotely decent, but boy, was I glad to be wrong. He was up there, giving it his all, in front of an audience, and where he wanted to be this entire time for years, back where he belongs, in front of a live audience. And you could just tell, I could tell by his raw emotions throughout that show, God bless the man, for wanting to be where he has called home, that live stage. No matter if he's doing his solo gig or whether he's doing the Black Sabbath gig, Ozzy, where he belongs, is in front of a live audience with that entire crowd in the palm of his hands. And my cousin Sean, who was also here with me, and shout out to my cousin Sean, we've been to some good concerts as well. Sean was with me watching the live stream when he got there at their Guns' set. And he was here for Metallica and Ozzy and Sabbath sets. And I turned to him and I said, You're watching this. Does this look real to you? And he said, yes. This looks live. This sounds live. And I'm glad that it was live, because there is nothing like a real live rock and roll show that takes you on a ride, mistakes and all. And I am so grateful and so glad that this concert was streamed to the entire world to witness history. This will never happen again. To have a one-of-a-kind concert event with Metallica, Pantera, Tool, Slayer, and then modern rock and metal bands like Mastodon and Rival Sons and Gojira, and obviously another, old school band, Alice in Chains. You will, and obviously Steven Tyler was there as well with the second supergroup. You will never, ever see an iconic concert like this ever again. This was one of a kind, and I am so grateful that this was professionally shot and recorded for everybody to see. Because the powers of technology, we can experience things unlike, from back in the day. Because back in the day, none of this, we did not have this type of technology. We didn't have the technology to stream concerts, no matter where we're at, on our phones, on our tablets, on our computers, stuff like that. But to have this concert broadcasted all over the world, it was amazing to experience this entire show. And continuing what Ozzy said, the band backing him, phenomenal. Ozzy, considering what that man has gone through, he was in heaven in front of an audience, having that crowd go berserk, doing his typical thing. I want to see you go fucking crazy. Clap your hands, all the typical Ozzy, front man, things that he would do back in the day. And back then, obviously, when he could, move. And again, God bless the guy, for wanting to be up there on stage, because he clearly wanted to get up, but obviously he can't because of the Parkinson's disease. But yes, a awful disease like Parkinson's might be hindering Ozzy's walking capabilities, but you will never be able to break the spirit of a man who has had this in his fiber of being, for wanting to be on that stage. Because no matter what physical problems you could do to a person, as long as that person has the capabilities of saying, I don't care what I got to go through, I'm going to get to where I want to be, and that is on that stage or whatever you are doing in life. Do not let nothing bring you down. And that is coming from somebody like me who has been blind now for 19 years. Do not let any physical ailments, make you not want to live your life, because everybody has a purpose in life. Everybody has their callings in life to do what they are good at, because I believe in my heart of hearts that everybody is good at something. I truly believe that. Now, Ozzy set, it was what it was. I was expecting some of the songs that he played, opening up with I Don't Know, one of my favorite songs from Ozzy's solo discography. Sounded really, really good, and that set the tempo. And then the band went into Mr. Crowley, and obviously Jack Black sung that song in a pre-recorded video. Sounded really good. And then a curveball. Suicide Solution did not have that on my bingo card at all. I thought everybody sounded really good playing this song. Everybody played their parts very well, and Ozzy still, for what he's gone through, sounded really good. And then the emotional part of the entire concert. Mama, I'm coming home. This is when there was not a single dry eye in that stadium. And I know I was fighting tears, and I turned to Sean, I'm going, dude, he's got me in the feels, man. Like, if you are not feeling this, then you don't have a pulse. You don't have a heart. You don't have compassion. You don't have real, genuine human emotions. And Ozzy just overcome by emotion, overcome by his raw emotions of what the hell he has gone through and the pain, the physical pain that he's gone through to get to this moment in time. He wanted to be on that stage, and he was so happy. And throughout the solo set, he did say several times, I love you all. You have no idea how it feels to be back on this stage once again after 6 years. Hell yeah, Ozzy. So grateful that you were able to go out on your own sword. You did not let nothing bring you down. Mama, I'm Coming Home was absolutely perfect for what it was. Ozzy's vocals, were they not perfect? No. Did they need to be? No. Why? Because it's real, raw emotions going through everybody in that stadium. And I was told by Sean and heard it by everybody else that talked about this concert on the radio. Everybody in that stadium crying. Grown men, women, children crying. Tears of joy. Overly weeping. Happy tears. To witness, again, something that we will never experience again. And I turned to Sean and I said, dude, this is what it's all about. This is what life is about. Out there, enjoying yourself, having the time of your life. Do not live your life without any regrets. Do not. Have as much fun as humanly possible. And Zach doing the backup vocals and the audience doing the vocals along with Zach. So powerful, so good, amazing, amazing performance. And what's also cool is there is a there is a audio track of Ozzy's vocals isolated from the Mama I'm Coming Home performance at the concert last Saturday. Just really, really, really cool stuff. And then they capped off the set from a raw emotional roller coaster, Mama I'm Coming Home. And also, real quick of note, Zach Wild's guitar playing with the clean and the solo, breathtaking, amazing, amazing. And then they capped it off with Crazy Train. Again, the perfect song to close it out. The first of two sets for Ozzy of the night. Closing it out with a classic, Crazy Train. You know it, you love it. Amazing, amazing stuff. And then 20 plus minutes later, the original four of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, for the first time in 20 years, took the stage and played together for the first time. And again, like I mentioned 2 hours ago on this broadcast, that the catalyst for this, for Iommi eventually wanting to do it, was Bill Ward. Because Bill Ward did not play in the final tour of Black Sabbath of the End. Tommy Clufetto's obviously stepped in on the drum kit and played with Iommi, Butler, and Osbourne during that tour. And although Tommy is a hell of a drummer himself, but it ain't the original four, because Bill, Tony, Geezer, and Ozzy wrote, recorded music that will stand the test of time for centuries and generations to come. And for what it was, for the most part, this set list, I easily predicted it. 3 out of the 4 songs, I had a feeling that I knew what they were going to play. And that's fine. I don't care. Because at this point, you're just happy that the 4 founding fathers of heavy metal are on stage once again. And considering what Bill Ward has gone through with having 3 heart attacks and Ozzy with the Parkinson's disease, for what it was, I thought it was fine. Was it a little rough at times? Of course it was. I mean, Bill Ward has not played with the band in 20 years. Did it need to be perfect? No. Because I love real, raw performances. And you could tell, especially on War Pigs, that Ward had to slow down some of those drum fills or alternate how to do those drum fills because he's not going to be able to play that rapid pace kind of quickness that he did back in 1970 on the original recording. But Geezer and Tony, on the other hand, man, they both sounded phenomenal on their respective instruments. They were locked in from the opening get-go. And Ozzy, like I mentioned with his solo set, had that entire audience in the palm of his hands. He had that entire audience on their feet the entire time he was out there because everybody knew they were witnessing history. They were a part of something that I will keep saying because it's never going to happen again. You will never see that much talent on that stage ever again. Unreal. Unfreaking real. Amazing. Amazing. Amazing stuff. To witness this. Opening up with War Pigs. Man, the classic of all classics. You know the riff. You love it. The lyrics reign supreme to this very day. They speak the truth to this very day when Geezer wrote those lyrics. And just like Randy said from Lamb of God on the stage, when Geezer wrote those lyrics in 1971 to Children of the Grave, those lyrics are powerful and are so meaningful in 2025. Geezer is one hell of a lyricist, and his lyrics from 1973 Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, 1970s Black Sabbath, and Paranoid, and all of the other albums that Geezer did with the original lineup stand the test of time. That is how powerful of a writer Geezer is. He is such a great lyricist. And he will go down as one of the greatest songwriters of all time. in my humble opinion. War Pigs sounded, for what it was, amazing. I know, warts and all, I don't care. I thought for what it was, I still thought it sounded amazing. Despite the issues that Ward was obviously having with some of the drum fills and stuff. And then, after that great performance of War Pigs, they launched into the shocker of the set for me. And I love this song, and I love playing the song, NIB. That opening bass line, bass solo, whatever you want to call it from Geezer Butler, it is so damn good. So good. And that riff is heavy, hits you in the chest, and it makes you feel it from the opening chords to the final chords. So good. Everybody, once again, sounded really good on this. And then one of the highlights for me, Iron Man. Me being a wrestling fan, and I know my brothers Ezra, Joey, Kevin, Randy, Hijacker Mike, and everybody at the Nation's Corner, we're all wrestling fans. All my brothers and my sisters. We are all professional wrestling fans. And when you think of Iron Man, you think of one tag team, the Road Warriors. When that song would kick on the PA, Road Warriors would come down, kick your ass, leave the ring, and the song would still be playing in the background. And also, what I loved about Ozzy's set and Sabbath's set is the tuning of the guitars and the bass, and especially the drums, because how good the drums sounded. But what I loved about the bass and guitar tones from Iommi and Geezer, respectively, is I loved how it sounded more heavier with the lower tones and pitch, and it made the song sound more grittier and tougher. And Iron Man, I love that performance. The crowd ate it up. Ozzy sounded good. Of course, Iommi with the riff. Butler with that great bass line. Bill Ward, I think by this juncture, I think he started to find a groove in the set because War Pigs, obviously, he was still a little rusty, but he eventually knocked off that rust pretty quickly, in my humble opinion. Iron Man, really good. Uh, One of my favorite parts of that song is the drum fill towards the end when the song tempo picks up. Is really cool, really cool. That's always one of my favorite parts in the song Iron Man. Really cool. And then they capped it off with Paranoid, and this was not a surprise. War Pigs, Iron Man, and Paranoid. These were not surprises to me at all. I had these in the set list in my brain going in before the show even kicked off. And again, as Ozzy stated from the stage, this was the last song of the set. And again, he was overcome with emotions. And there was times during Paranoid he was visibly emotional and just in the moment feeling it. And to be surrounded by 40,000 people from all over the world and to be surrounded by the men and women who looked up to your music for inspiration. Because, like James Hetfield said during Metallica's set before Ozzy's solo set, without Black Sabbath, there would be no Metallica. And everybody from that stage, Rival Sons, Anthrax, Slayer, Pantera, Mastodon, Lamb of God, Gojira, everybody that took that stage in one way or another made mention to Ozzy and to Sabbath on how much of an inspiration that they were to everybody's respective music. What an amazing day last Saturday, a week ago, when this took place. To experience all of these bands performing at a high level and not only covering Ozzy and Sabbath's music, but to be making these songs their very own and not wanting to sound like the original recordings. This was such an amazing experience from the comfort of my own home. I did not have to go anywhere to experience this. I got to be home, relaxing, drinking whatever I wanted to drink at times if I want during the commercial breaks. If I wanted to drum, I could do that too. Hell, I got to hang out with my brothers on this show, Joey and Kevin, two of the brothers on this show of mine. Shout outs to Kevin and the Joey. Last week it was great hanging out with y'all. Hanging out by the pool, talking sports, and listening to this concert in my earbud as I was hanging out with you guys. And we will be back this Tuesday with our regular coverage of covering the world of sports. And again, paranoid, considering what Bill Ward has gone through, what Ozzy's gone through, thought it was really good. Really, really good. The crowd ate it up, fully involved, crowd participation, Ozzy, final send off, final bow, Black Sabbath, the original four as it was supposed to be, the original four performing on stage for the final time, taking their final bows in front of 40,000 plus people in attendance, their peers, their colleagues in hard rock and heavy metal. And also to the over 5 million that watched this historic event unfold throughout the entire day on July the 5th. Again, thank you to the sound person. Don't know who you are, but you, sir, did one hell of a job at sitting there and mixing everything. The majority of the time, the sound was perfect. Was there flaws? Yes. Was it fixed in the end with the video on demand feed? Yes, it was. The sound was so good from the opening notes of Mastodon to the final notes of Black Sabbath. Everybody sounded great as far as the mix is concerned. It was amazing to experience this from the comfort of my own home. Thank you for this being streamed. And again, folks, I cannot think of a better time than to do a broadcast for you guys talking about my passion in life. One of my passions in life, music. Music saved my life when I needed it. Because when I lost my vision, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Because I thought I had it all figured out. But the minute that I lost my vision, I had to change course. I had to find my identity. And it took me some time to do some soul searching to find who I am. But I know who I am. And if you don't know who you are, that's okay. Because you too, just like me, can find your identity during your crisis when you don't know where you fit in, what your talents are. Because I believe that everybody has a purpose. Everybody has talents. Whether you're a cook, you're a musician, whatever you do, everybody, you're an actor, you're a wrestler, you're an athlete. Everybody has a purpose in life. You go out there, you make your mark on society. Chase your own career paths. Find your destiny. Find your purpose in life. Because again, we all have a purpose in this thing, the circle that they call life. Go out there and make a difference on society. Because I promise you, if you don't know who you are, you will find yourself when you least expect it. You will find your calling card when you least expect it. Because let me tell you from experience, 10 years ago, when I took the stage for the very first time since graduating high school, I remember playing my first 20 plus minute set behind a drum kit that I never owned or played on. I got to play with some friends of mine. And I remember being on that stage, overcome by emotions. I was fighting tears throughout that entire set. And then after the Ballad of Curtis Lowe, I got off that stage and I cried. Cried. Why? Because after losing my vision in 2006, I finally found my calling. Music is my calling. It is my passion. I will travel to and far to go to hear music because music speaks to me unlike anything else has in society. Because anything you're feeling, happiness, sadness, betrayal, anger, you name it, it's there. Music speaks to you, and sometimes I'll put on instrumentals, and you don't have to have lyrics and songs to feel emotion. Just the sound of those frequencies, they speak to you. They go inside your body and they speak to you. And again, not to get motivational type speaking on this broadcast, but I feel like there are people out there that don't know who the hell they are. But I promise you, if you do some deep searching into your mind, body, and soul, you will find what makes you tick. You will find your outlook, your passion, what you're good at, what you're great at, what you will do to bust your ass and be great in life. Because let me tell you, as a drummer, as a voiceover guy for for these shows, for these broadcasts that we do on a week-to-week basis, I am a perfectionist. I want things to be great. I don't want it to be good or okay. I want it to be great. And that is how everybody in this world should be. You want to be great, not good enough. You want to be great at what you're good at. Because I promise you, if you don't know your talents, trust me, with a little trial and error, you will find your path to glory. You will find success in life. Because in order to achieve success, you have to fall flat on your face. In order to achieve greatness, in order to pursue your path to success in life. And I felt like this needed to be said because in a time where this world is gone crazy, the people that are out there that watch this, that don't know who you are, look inside yourself. Find your purpose. Find your existence. Find your identity because everybody's individuality is very important. We own ourselves. We own our lives. We need to be the best version of ourselves at any given step that we take. When we wake up, we want to be great at something. Not good enough, great. We want to be great. Not good, not okay, not, all right, that was pretty good. No, you want to knock that shit out the fucking park. That's what you need to do. That's what you want to do. Because if you want to be great at something, you will push yourself to where you want to be in life. Because that's what I did. When I lost my vision, I didn't know who I was. I didn't think I had a purpose because I felt like an outcast to society. I felt like I didn't have a voice, but I found my voice. That was with music. That was with great people surrounding myself, friends and family that love and support me. Trust me, you can find a support system yourself and friends and family that give a shit about you, that love you for you. They don't judge you for your mishaps, your mistakes, your fuck ups. You know, we are all different. We all bleed blood. We all bleed the same color, but we are all different individuals. We deserve to live our lives the way we intend to live our lives. So again, if you don't know your calling card, if you don't know who you are, find yourself. You'll find yourself. Because as a self-taught musician, I had to learn the hard way how to be good at my craft. Nobody taught me how to play drums. I found out on my own how to play drums. I dedicate myself at my craft to be great at my craft. Not good enough, great. And you, the people out there that don't know who you are, you will find yourself. Mark my words. You will find your meaningness in life. You will find your path. I cannot think of a better time to talk music and to get a little motivational for you guys than right now. Right here, right now. Thank you for joining me on this special broadcast of our Nation Sports Show. This Tuesday, we will be back live talking about all things sports. And also, real quick, I thought about this too, because going into this week, I was thinking, I don't know what the hell to talk about, because there really wasn't a whole lot going on in the world of sports, because there just really wasn't. So I figured this week was the perfect time to do a broadcast talking about the world of sports, or the world of music, excuse me, because there was so much that went on with music. And real quick, I also want to get to the Kiss Storms Vegas event. That is a complete scam, because now we know what's going on with that. Because as per usual, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley are ripping off the entire Kiss army once again, charging these fans thousands upon thousands of dollars just to be in this event. And it's not even going to be nothing really special when it comes to what it is, because it's a quote unquote cruise on land lockdown. I'm sorry, but you cannot replicate a cruise in a casino. You got to be out there on the waters, whether it be in the Bahamas or the Grand Turks or what have you, New Mexico, or wherever you want to go. You can't replicate that shit in a casino. Come on, the hell. First, he scammed the audience saying, "Oh, we're not going to play live again." Da 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 da. And then he did this, and anybody that knows how this stuff works knows that no band ever ends. And Kiss is going to play once again 2 sets, acoustic and electric, this November. Whoever bought tickets to this, I feel bad for you, because you just got ripped off a shit ton of money by these greedy, selfish bastards. It is what it is. It needs to be said. Because they will find a way to rip off the entire fan base. And there are going to be those Kiss fanatics that will buy into anything that Gene and Paul sell the Kiss army. That is that. Moving on. And another thing I want to talk about is Matt Cameron announced on this past Monday that Pearl Jam, after 27 years of being their drummer, he is stepping down from the band. He joined the band in 1998, and it makes me wonder, what is Matt Cameron's next move? Because Soundgarden is going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this fall alongside Bad Company, who deserve it as well. And I think that maybe, just maybe Matt Cameron and the surviving members of Soundgarden maybe want to get this going again, because maybe they can find a singer, that can, obviously it's going to be big shoes to fill, because if Linkin Park could be out there with Emily Armstrong replacing Chester Bennington, well, then Soundgarden can find a replacement singer to step in and sing Chris Cornell's parts. Because after all, no band never ends. And Matt Cameron at one point also was the drummer of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam at the same time, being in two big successful bands. And Matt Cameron, he's a hell of a drummer. He's one of my favorite drummers too, one of my drumming influences. Just really good drummer, good stuff that he did over the years with the band, recording wise and obviously touring. And it's going to be interesting to see what Pearl Jam does next, because they've gone through a who's who of drummers over their existence, but they had a consistent lineup with Cameron behind the kit for 27 years. But now it's going to be interesting to see who the next drummer is going to be in Pearl Jam going forward. And again, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this broadcast. What a special time to do an all music edition on the Our Nation Sports Show YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter or X at Owen_Sports Show, Facebook.com/Our Nation Sports Show, and where we are live on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific. YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to all your family and your friends that love the world of sports. And if you are a fan of music, please share this broadcast with everybody out there that you know that loves music just as much as I do. And I know my brothers Ezra, Randy do as well. And also don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter or X at Nation's Corner, Facebook, Instagram, and where they are live on most Saturday nights, where it is all right for fighting and talking a little pro wrestling. RASSLIN, that's wrestling. YouTube.com/The Nation's Corner. Join the guys and the gal as they recap all things professional wrestling. Man, oh man, oh man, what a time to be a music fan. What a time to be a wrestling fan, because this weekend it is a big weekend. Last night was SmackDown. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. Today, and then today is also All In Texas. That'll be happening at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. Also, NXT Great American Bash is happening, and later Saturday night, it is going to be Saturday night's main event. And then on Sunday night, it is WWE Evolution 2. Great events happening in Atlanta for WWE. And obviously AEW having their big show of the year, All In Texas at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. And just want to thank you guys for tuning in to this broadcast. What an awesome time breaking down my concert experiences for the last month or so, and plus this big Back to the Beginning concert, because how the hell could you not want to talk about this? There was so much that went on with this concert. It needed to be broken down. Amazing stuff. You can follow our individual channels on Twitter or X. You can follow me at Steven_Wyand. You can follow Ezra at Deadman469. You can follow Joey at Row_Todd1992. You can also follow Kevin at That Niner Gang 10. And you can follow Hijacker Mike, our boy, at Mr. Mac on Twitter, and follow his cigar channel at Smoke in the Bay, THA Bay. And if you are a fine aficionado of all things cigars, Hijackers got you covered. And now that that has been taken care of, I think that this is a perfect time to close this broadcast with this message. To everybody that had a wonderful time with their family and their friends, just like I did over a week ago with the 4th of July, remember what the 4th of July is all about. The 4th of July is all about paying our respects to the men and women, honoring them, those that are serving right now, and the falling soldiers that have fought and died and paid the ultimate sacrifice to fight, protect, our freedoms in life. Because, like the song goes by Toby Keith, an American Soldier, I bear that cross with honor because freedom don't come free. And those lyrics are so true to this very day. And I know that Independence Day was this past Friday on the 4th, but every day, no matter what day it is, if you see a veteran in person, shake his or her hand. Thank them for protecting us from evil. Thank them for making the ultimate sacrifice, doing things that most people don't think about doing. The bravest men and women that are still here today to tell their stories. They will tell the stories of their survival, of protecting themselves from evil, protecting us from all the chaos. Because not everybody is meant to be donning the uniforms of all of the armed services. Those brave men and women that live to tell the stories of what they've been through in battle, if you see a veteran, no matter what day it is, shake their hands. Thank them for their service. Because without them, we are nothing. And to the brave men and women who unfortunately are not here with us, thank you for putting your lives on the line, for throwing caution to the wind, for protecting us, wanting to fight the good fight and protect us from all evil, protect us from danger. God bless America. God bless our troops. And like I said, had a great time with family and friends this past 4th of July on Friday. And I hope y'all all did too. But remember what this day is all about. Again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Later today, All In Texas, NXT Great American Bash. Later tonight, it is Saturday night's main event. And tomorrow night, it is WWE Evolution 2, an all-women's pay-per-view. And with that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. We will be back this Tuesday recapping the world of sports and getting back to our regularly scheduled program of recapping all things in sports. And I'm pretty sure Ezra is going to want to give his analysis on the Back to the Beginning concert as well. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this broadcast. Like, share, subscribe to our channel on social media, and all of that good stuff. If you love music, check this out. If you love sports, still check it out, because we get into a little bit of wrestling, we get into a little bit of sports, and a little bit of music from time to time. But this broadcast was necessary for all things music. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining on this special broadcast of our Nation Sports Show here on the YouTube channel. Be sure to like and share this video. Like our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and all of that good stuff. Follow the Nation's Corner on their respective social media platforms as well, if you love all things wrestling. And again, on behalf of Ezra, Kevin, Joey, Hijacker, and everybody at our Nation Sports Show, this has been your host of this special broadcast, Stephen Wyand, signing out. Take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your weekend, and hope you guys have a great up and coming week. Take care. Peace.